All right, we're live here on the Friday morning edition of Sidelines, and got a very special guest. And I'm going to Buddy take over, but it is Friday, and take notes. It's going to be a good one.
All right, thank you very much, Rob. Rob, good to be with you, and Brendan and Coach, good to see you again. I know you got a limited schedule this morning, so we won't inundate you with too much. But let me ask you a simple question: how do you like college football 2024 version so far, Urban?
Yeah, I'm blown away. I think one of the greatest things that's ever happened is this playoff. And because we're covering it every week on Big Noon and then our podcast, Triple Option, you just do a quick history lesson. And prior to the BCS, it was really just polls. And you sometimes had split national champions, and there was no really systemized way of doing it. But, back then the bowl games were everything. And then now, you moved into the 2006, we won it, and then 2008, we were the first team in 2008 be removed from the other bowl games. If you remember, oh wait, was that 6? Yeah, 2006. Instead of the normal, they went with a BCS bowl game, and that's when we beat Ohio State in Glendale. And then fast forward, they expanded to a college football playoff, which at Ohio State we were the first one, and there were 4 teams. Now there's 12. But I think for everybody to understand that it's much more than 12. There's 25 programs right now that there's hope, and there's belief, and there's team meetings right now. There's practices. There's fan engagement. And the most important people are players. That's hundreds and hundreds of college football players that are still very engaged with the hope of competing in the playoffs. So I think it's fantastic. I think you're going to see something though that you got some blue bloods in there that have 2 losses, and if they lose their third one, and we spoke about this on the triple option, the panic will get set in a little bit, because that's when you'll probably see sit out, transfer. That's when the negativity, or that's when the obstacles will start. But right now, I can't imagine it being any better.
I want to ask you, let's go back to 2006 and 8, and then jump forward now, how much the game has changed. And if you had to go into coaching today, what are the 3 things that you would do? And I think I have an idea, but tell me what a coach today has to do that a coach didn't have to do in 2008.
Yeah, the first thing is assemble a staff. I've always, when I speak to people, the first thing is you develop and implement a culture. How do you do that? The most undervalued people in an organization is that group of assistant coaches. And now that I'm removed from it, and I knew it as it was happening, when I lost a Charlie Strong, a Dan Mullen, Greg Madison, Dazio, my strongest coaches, that was like losing Percy Harvin.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe even longer because of the impact. You use a player for a year, but you lose a coach, man, you're living with it. And so that was the number one thing. And then the second one is talent acquisition, and that's probably, it used to be in 2005. I get hired in Florida, and the system was you would recruit in May, you'd get your list together, you'd start recruiting in September, and then you would have a couple of visits in December, then a couple of visits in January, and that's it. That's blown completely away. Now it's 24/7, it's 365, and now there's cash involved. So it's and the team. I think you're going to start to see general managers show up in organizations. You're going to see salary cap experts being hired in collegiate situations. I think that's the next phase.
Yeah, Buddy Martin, along with Rob Brown and Brendan Martin, with Urban this morning on what we used to call the best Fridays in football, and still fun. We've always been able to have fun celebrating what was good about college football, Urban. You and I have that common bond. Now, here we are at this point in time. We're down to the nub. We're in November of 2024. These teams are ebbing and flowing. Now, all of a sudden, Ohio State, that you've been promoting big time, just hammers Penn State. They're looking like they're in good shape. But you also believe in physicality. This time of year, with the depth on the roster and the remaining games they have, and these unbelievable matchups every week, especially in the SEC. You get into the demolition derby. Who could be left standing? Who is going to be able to, what coaches are in jeopardy? It's just everything is at play here, Urban, isn't it?
It is. And I just wish there was a more effective way to value the schedule strength. And, you're going to see some teams that are possibly make the playoff that didn't play a ranked team. And it's not their fault. I mean, I'm not blaming, but a 3-loss SEC team, what would happen on that field if they played one of these teams that didn't? I think most people know the answer. I mean, it'd probably be a win. And you just watch the NFL draft, and that'll tell you, who's got the better rosters. So you certainly don't want to take away with some of the incredible storylines from SMU to, I mean, my gosh, we got Coach Prime this week at Texas Tech, and then you got Indiana, you got Navy, Army, you got some incredible storylines right now. And I'm telling you that the college football world, other than we need some guardrails, it's really good. And by the way, I think the coaching is really good. I watch all the film now, and I think the coaching is. There's some really well-coached teams out there.
You're a coaching guy. You don't like to criticize coaches. You said that a number of times, but we have unique situations. Billy Napier's got one. All of a sudden, he was dead man walking. All of a sudden, now he got a reprieve. He got a vote of confidence. He's going to be the coach next year at Florida. Look, he had a $26 million buyout. If they come back and he takes half of that and buys players in the NIL, how does that change things? I see Jimmy Sexton's fingerprints all over that, Jimmy Sexton. And so people are wondering, is it the right choice, the bad choice? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw it. And of course, I got, about 100 text messages from friends and Gators. And I will say this about Coach Napier and what he's done. I thought they were done. I thought, you saw what's happening in Tallahassee. It's not uncommon to see a team once it starts to, but there must be a decent culture. I don't know. I'm not there, obviously, at Florida because they're playing. They had a third string quarterback and squared up with Georgia. And, I just make sure that Florida doesn't accept,
mediocrity
losses. You just can't. But I get it. I think Strickland showed his loyalty. I'm very hopeful that loyalty pays off because I'm a coach's coach, and I know what they do. I know how hard they work, and I think there's a lot of reality about what I read about the NIL. The 80% of his NIL is in young players. Now, it would be awful if some of those guys leave, and then here, But that's the management that Scott Strickland has to do. And my initial reaction is, I'm really happy for that coach, so he's getting a little more time. I'm also a Gator fan, and I just at the end of the day, you got to be on the left-hand side of that column when you walk off the field and go sing the "We Are the Boys" or go sing the "Orange and Blue" fight song.
Yeah, so you had to catch yourself there.
When I first got to Florida. I first got to Florida, buddy.
I know
that everybody told me "We Are the Boys from Florida" is a fight song. I went to every fraternity, every sorority, every student group, and I had handout. John Clark we had a big stack in my car.
Yeah.
And he'd pick me up after practice or pick me up after whatever. And I said, what do we got tonight? And he says, we got Sigma Chi, Kappa, all these. Yeah. I'd be so tired. And he'd have a cup of coffee for me, and we'd go for the next 3-4 hours every night, buddy, in spring. And I'd go talk to him about needing him at the stadium, and we're going to come over to you and sing the alma mater and the fight, and then we're going to sing the fight song together. And then they didn't know the fight song. So I handed out I hand out 100 sheets of paper, and we'd sing "We Are the Boys from Florida." And it really became a great tradition there.
Yeah, of course. And the great line from the alma mater is one line that people remember: "Orange and blue, victorious!" Right?
Orange and blue.
I'll let these guys jump in with a quick question, Coach, if you don't mind, and a couple minutes we got. So, Rob Brown, go ahead. You got a question for Coach Meyer?
Coach, I just want to say I have a ton of respect for what you've always been as a coach. I love the way you coach because you and I are the same age. That's what I was brought up with. I hate it when I hear people say you can't coach tough. I was talking to a friend of mine that's coached for a long time last week. I hate to hear that. And I think kids crave tough coaching, tough love, whatever you want to call it. If you had an opportunity, if hypothetically, what other than Florida in the SEC you think is the best opportunity to have great success in the next 5 years?
Well, that's a great question. You got your traditionals in the East and West that I grew up in. You just back down memory lane. You got Georgia, Florida, Tennessee. Should always have great teams. They got everything you need. They got budgets, great college towns, good academics, and then most importantly, access to players. And then you got the other side, which is you had Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and then you started adding the Texas A&M. Now you got Texas, Oklahoma. So that's a tough question. I haven't given it much thought. To me, it's got to be alignment with an athlete. I was very fortunate. I had arguably one of the greatest athletic directors to ever be an AD, and Jeremy Foley. And that's the thing that sold me, is that we were going to be perfectly aligned, which we were. And so misalignment at any level is terrible. And I'm not going to call out programs, but I've heard from colleagues, I've heard from other people that some programs are going to always struggle because there's alignment issues from the top down. There's other programs that do very well. It's because there's perfect alignment. And you can read behind the lines, you can look in the records. At the end of the day, when a team wins, it's not because of a great coach, it's not because of great players. Those are all very important. It's because of alignment. And that would be the first thing that you have to get, especially nowadays.
And then there's Vanderbilt, Coach.
Now that's I should have mentioned Vanderbilt because I put them like Indiana. I love watching them. It's I said this on Big Nooner, I think, on the podcast, is that I got to watch a lot of film because it's part of my job now, and plus I enjoy it. There's sometimes I can't watch it. I'm watching it because I have to, and then I just, after 7 minutes, I turn it off and say, this is terrible. This is lack of fundamentals, lack of effort. And then you flip on these other teams like Vanderbilt. That coaching staff, first of all, that Vanderbilt is a hell of a football team. They have good players that are playing great. But that's a credit to that coaching staff.
Coach, I always said that when the smart kids get good a little bit, watch out because they're going to be good. So I'm a Commodore fan right now if I'm not a Gator fan because I love the underdog. So thanks for joining us today, Coach. Coach, one question. Zach, one of our viewers said, Buddy or Brendan, please ask Urban if Kiffin would kill it at Florida, or would you think Lane Kiffin would be a good fit? I'm asking for one of our viewers here, so I thought I'd throw it out there.
Funny story about Lane Kiffin. He gets hired at Tennessee, and we win the national title. I'm with my father. He's not doing well. He had cancer, and I was in the ICU unit up in Cincinnati, Ohio. We just won the title, and I finally get a break, and I'm up there with him. And this right after recruiting, and he comes out and says that we cheated, and I cheated by calling a player on a visit. And I mean, called me a cheater. And obviously my dad's got oxygen on him. He looks at me like what? And I was like, I lost my mind. And so that started a little bit of a war. And then Lane apologized. Coach Kiffin and I are friends now. People laugh when I tell them that. I think he's great. I think he's great for the game. Some of the stuff, I enjoy watching, reading. Excellent play caller, excellent offensive coach. But what he's got to do now is finish. And that's kind of been, he gets a good run, and then I think they got 2 losses now. So your question, obviously, I'm beating around the bush. I'm not going to answer that.
Okay, fair enough. I totally get it. But Buddy, hold on. This is my question. If you had to add one position, you talked about how the coaching's changing. If you were coaching right now, you had to add one position in the top 5 tier of the upper leadership that wasn't there. What kind of position would you add as a coaching position? Excuse me.
I'm not sure the question.
Well, like we talked about how we're going to have different type of coaches, people, general managers. We're going to have people who are doing salary cap things. If you had to add a coaching position that would be advantageous in the NIL in today's game, what coaching position do you think is missing from a managerial position, like a front of house person, or is it what position do you think you would add in that coaching staff?
Yeah, we were the first ones to add a sports performance team. I wasn't able to do it in Florida. I mean, think about that back with the budgetary restrictions and all that, but we added a full-time physical therapist just for football. It used to be a physical therapist for everybody. You had a sports psychologist, one for the entire team, and only people with like positive drug tests got to see the person. We were the first ones at Ohio State to hire one. Now there's more than one. So I think in the football world, I think the next step is a GM that can take that completely off the plate of the head coach. And it's going to be, because I've seen it, the salary cap. It's going to be, the budgetary, because there's got to be some fiscal responsibility. And head coaches are not built like that. So they're going to have to hire people that are.
Urban, let's go off of this story. I love it. This tells you how temporary fame is and fleeting. And in 2006, when you won the national championship, when everybody was gone, and you and Bud, and I forget who else were sitting back in the locker room, taking 2 seconds to gloat, and then the reality hits you of what you had faced you. Talk about that night when you won the national championship. Boy, you're going to the moon, and then what happened?
Yeah, I remember we dancing and celebrating, and everybody's playing that music, and then we talked to the president of the United States, George Bush, I believe it was at the time, and then I went back and I said, go grab my 2 mentors, Earl Bruce and my father. And I remember sitting there, I told someone it felt like all the pressure was gone. And I looked at them both and I said, the most amazing thing is for the rest of my life, you get to do this for fun. We did it. I'm going to have fun doing this. No more pressure. And Mac Brown and I would laugh. We still laugh about that. That may be arguably one of the most ignorant and untrue statements ever made, because every step you take, and every breath you take, every step you take, others look at you that way, but also internally, are we doing everything we can to win a national title? And of course, perfection is fleeting. It's impossible, but you chase it, and that's what happens, and it beats you to death.
And then you won one 2 years later. Hey, Coach, now look, here we go. We're getting down to the end of it, and there's going to be some slobber knocking going on. You love a physical team. You think it's important. You mentioned it again the other day. Physicality. When you get down to the short hairs, as they say, in November, who are those tough teams? I know you think Ohio State's one.
Yeah, I made the comment. It's reality that who punches the hardest at the line of scrimmage will win. It's not that complicated. I mean, it's hard to get that way, and it's recruiting, development, and you got to have Mickey Maratis. You got to have strong line coaches on both sides of the ball, and you got to have a head coach that believes in toughness wins. And I witnessed a 5-minute and 13-yard drive, a 5-minute and 13-second drive against Penn State from the 1-yard line in front of 110,000 people against a good team. And they said, we're running the ball, and they couldn't stop them. That's when I knew I had a special team, is when we had that kind of physicality. And the 08 with the Pounceys and that defensive line, that was a nasty physical team. I would put, Ohio State up to that point. I didn't really see it. But once you see it, it's there. So I would put them right near the top. I would put Georgia because of their defense. I have no idea what's going on with those turnovers. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. The 9 turnovers in 2 games and they're still winning. So that they get a better team, they'll lose. I know Texas, I think Carson Beck had 3 picks and they beat Texas. So I think Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia are the 3 big dogs right now. And I think they're the most physical.
Coach Urban Meyer, Big Ten kickoff. You got Coach Prime this weekend. Going to be a fun time. We'll be watching. We appreciate your time and love your work on TV. Only thing I'd like better is to see you back on the sideline, but no, I can't say that.
Please, I beg you every time, Coach. It's my favorite interview of all time. I beg you. Come back, Coach. I love you. Come back to Florida. Please come back and be a Gator.
Yeah. Where were y'all back his first year when he walked into the restaurants and games on? They were booing him. Where were you guys then, right?
I was there covering him and celebrating him because I knew he was going to be great.
Thanks,
Have a great day, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach.
Coach Meyer. Wow, awesome. It's such a treat always having him on. Urban Meyer.
Is it fair to
Guys?
say, guys, sometimes you're in a room with a coach or somebody that's just a dominant alpha personality. You could even feel that through the airwaves. I mean, and that's what I love about coaches. And buddy, you mentioned about physicality, and Brendan did too. Is you may not be the most talented team, but by God, you can be the toughest, hardest, get after your ass team in America. And as you bring in better talent and they buy into that culture and you recruit to your culture, you can have great things happen to you. So, I mean, that was great. And we have to have coaches that are the standard. The SEC, we have them in every decade. Right now, it's Kirby Smart. So that was a treat, man. That was awesome.
That was cool. Thanks for bringing him on, buddy. You going to stick
right,
around
guys,
with us or not?
I'm going to let you guys take it from here. And thank you, George. Thanks for being on the show with you guys, and great to talk to you. And we'll catch up to you soon. All right.
Well, you're our coach.
Yeah, we'll share the airways with you whenever you want. All right.
Anytime, bring Urban Meyer on. Okay. Hey, let me say something about Landers Ford, the #1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South. Open Monday through Saturday. They are open 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Service department open 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again, they're open every day of the week except Sunday. Cars, trucks, SUVs. LandersFordMemphis.com. That's the website. Click on that QR link. They will deliver anywhere. Their name is all over the Mid-South, and they are there to serve. And their motto is pretty simple. I love it. If you're looking for a Bronco, an F-150, an F-250, diesel, power stroke, they've got it all. If you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you probably paid too much. And Winter Timber Outdoors, well, down in Athens, Alabama, they joined as a sponsor this week. If you hunt ducks, deer,
you're gonna take me duck hunting.
Yeah, I'll take you duck hunting. Yes.
I've never been duck hunting. I'm gonna go after football season, right?
And you'll be addicted to it. Kenny Winter,
I like guns.
CEO, this guy's awesome. And Dylan Monroe, his COO, met with them. They have a store in Athens, Alabama, and they're expanding. They're going to break ground Thursday, November 14th, on a new store in Auburn on Opelika Road at Colonial Village Mall, y'all know where that is. But they're going to be going into the SEC college towns, and click on that QR code. They always have a lot of specials.
They're having a BOGO. Buy one, get one free.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that when you go in there, everybody in the store is trained, and they're hunting people. They duck hunt, they deer hunt. They've got deer stands, they've got decoys, they've got over 2,000 guns, handguns, rifles, shotguns in the store. They are first-class people. They're going to be growing into Arkansas. They were going to be expanding Winter Timber Outdoors.
And .com promotions. I'm sorry, I was just reading. We just talked to they're great people over there, and talked to a couple of their folks in the marketing department. Said I wanted to make sure we got it right. Current promotions are buy one, get one. Rete Masimara. Get one Rete GPS Tactical for free, as well as some rebates. It's on a BOGO right now, and they also have items up to 70% off coming up on Black Friday. Yeah. So just make sure that you can put that on your calendar. 70% off Black Friday is pretty awesome. So
yeah, great gear in there. I mean, the store is beautiful. Again, they're in Athens, Alabama. You can order online, take the virtual tour. They have a dedicated shipping department.
Welcome to the family.
Welcome to the family.
Speaking of family, David. Welcome to
Dave
the show.
Tompkins on with us.
Dave's in his room where he grew up as a child right now.
And let me say this. Are you in Sarasota?
Visiting parents in Sarasota.
Okay. Nice. Hey, real quick, I want to say something. Doug Dean is on special assignment on his week. Every year this week, he goes to Illinois and deer hunts. So he's in the deer stand right now, and they got great ones at Winter Timber Outdoors. And so he'll try to join, but Frank Duffy is on. Go Tigers. That was fun. First time we've had Urban Meyer on this show. Buddy and Brendan brought him on this morning. I love having a high standard of a coach. Guys, this college football season, I gotta say this. I'll echo what I just heard. The interest, here it is, November 8th. And guys, we're going to be glued to the TV tomorrow and Saturday when the NFL's on, we'll catch up on our sleep. No offense to the NFL.
Yep. Dave, Frank, you there? Tune in.
Yeah.
Tune in, Tokyo. You guys
I'm
here?
having internet problems. Yes, I'm having
you're
internet
gonna drop
problems.
out.
I might.
All right. All right.
Okay,
Well, it's
come
gonna
back.
switch over. Frank, you here?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. So, well, that's the beauty of the 12-team playoff. I mean, we have so many teams that are still in it. Look, our game tomorrow night in Baton Rouge with Alabama coming in, if we both had 2 losses in the old system, it wouldn't be as important. Now, tomorrow night is in my opinion, is the very first playoff game of the year, because whoever loses the Alabama LSU game's got to leave town. So you're already seeing the playoff system at work with all these teams that still have a chance to make it. And so it's not a 12-team season. It's really a 24-team season to get down to the 12. And that's what these games in November are going to be. They're going to be elimination games like the Alabama LSU game this weekend.
Yeah, Dave, jump in when you're with us if you can. But
if not, call me, Dave. I'll work.
yeah. But hey, Frank, I was on a show in Jackson, Mississippi. Our friend Jake Wimberly, who's on our show a lot, and I'm on his show 105.9, The Afternoon Drive, and he asked me, who do you like in LSU, Alabama? And I'll just throw this one, and Dave, you can jump on it. If they try to do what they did with Jalen Milroe, Kalen DeBoer tries to ask him to stand in the pocket on 50 pass plays called like they did in Knoxville, and they threw 45 of them, versus say, Jalen, do what you do. We were 11-2 last year. If they try to constrain him, that hurts Alabama. You got to let Jalen Milroe run and do what he does. When you got wheels like that, Dave Tompkins, yes or no? Agree or disagree?
Completely agree. And I'll add, I love Frank's point. What's so cool about the expanded playoff is that basically November is elimination month. And, September, October, you're establishing your position. In November, everything's an elimination game. This is an elimination game tomorrow night in Baton Rouge. And yes, I absolutely think you just turn Jalen Milroe loose. Now's not the time to turn him into an NFL quarterback. Now is the time to leverage what he has, which is feet, throw on the move, long pass plays, rush out of the pocket for big gains. Just let him be himself and don't try to make him something he's not yet. I think he will become a good NFL quarterback. I think he will evolve as Lamar Jackson evolved, but he's not there yet. Just let him be himself tomorrow night.
Frank, yeah.
I don't know if DeBoer is worth a flip in the day. Was look at our game, see what he should be doing. In the first half of that, the quarterback that was not mobile, and it should have been a 21-point lead. And as soon as the mobile quarterback came in, we got our ass beat. So let me tell you, if they don't unleash him, they did a poor job in the film room just from a game 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, nobody has. Frank, we're having a little trouble hearing you, but I will say this. Nobody has better success in Baton Rouge than Alabama. From, 1965 to 1998, I don't think Alabama lost in Baton Rouge. That game tomorrow night, we know the crowd's going to be incredible. I'll tell you 2 people I know that are going to be there, Frank Duffy, and then 2 other ones, Tanner Stein and Quentin Stein. The great folks at Stein Home and Lumber down all over Alabama out of DeRidder, St. Charles. You could call that a metroplex, couldn't you, Frank?
two stoplights in DeRidder, but yes.
You're damn right.
But let's recall that Nick Saban lost his first game in Baton Rouge. I think there's a little bit of a rite of passage. Of course, I'm pulling for the Tide, but it would not surprise me if LSU were to prevail tomorrow night.
Well, this has been an away series. In fact, I had never saw the Tigers lose from 1982 on until I think it was like 2013, 2015 when Mettenberger got beat. I was like 10-0 in the state of Alabama, being Birmingham or Tuscaloosa. The flip side of that, you're right, Rob. I don't think I saw an LSU win here until I think it was 2002. So it is an away series, which is kind of strange. But I will tell you, we've won the last 2 games that we were underdogs at night. was Alabama 2 years ago and Ole Miss, and both games went into overtime. So I think it's gonna be another epic LSU Alabama battle. It's going to come down to the end. It's going to be a nail biter. It's going to be exciting, must-watch TV. I just think that it's going to come down to how well we control Jalen Milroe. That's going to be the game. If Weeks and our linebacking core can keep their lanes, their containment, I think we win the ball game. If he gets more than 50 yards rushing, I think we lose.
You know what, Dave? When you look at these stats he just mentioned, flip it back 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. If you rushed the ball for 250 or more and passed it for about 160, 180, you probably won the game. Now it's a reverse of that.
It is, and passing is what matters. But then there's teams that have an asterisk, which Alabama does, where you've got a quarterback who can, be flushed from the pocket, and all of a sudden it's a 30 or 40 yard gain. And that's, I think Frank hit the nail on the head as to what the key is tomorrow night. I mean, that is the key. Obviously, like in any game, turnovers matter. Alabama was able to get some turnovers in the second half against Missouri. They can't make turnovers. They can't afford to make turnovers. Whenever Jalen Milroe throws interceptions, we lose. I think it's really the game. The sun rises and sets with Jalen Milroe tomorrow night and how he plays. If he's good, Jalen, I think Alabama wins. If he's less than good, Jalen, I think LSU wins.
All right, quick question, and then I've got another one. Frank, when I heard there was going to be a live tiger in Baton Rouge, I thought it was the return of Mike the Tiger. Can you provide some insight on this?
Okay. All right. So this is some crazy shit. So listen, I was driving, Ron and I were driving in yesterday from Atlanta. I've been so consumed with getting President Trump reelected that I missed the entire lead up to this tiger thing. So we get into town last night. I'm driving all day and I pulled up. I was like, holy mackerel, we're going to have a tiger on, coming in. And so here's the background on this. Back when I was in school, LSU used to bring Mike the Tiger in his little cage, like his little rolling trailer cage, right? In fact, the cheerleaders would sit on top of it and they'd bring Mike around. And back when I was a Tulane ball boy in the 70s, they would actually leave Mike the Tiger's cage during the game right next to the visitors' bench. So when they would come out, they'd have to pass a live 800-pound Bengal tiger, right? And he would snarl and everything.
I remember that because I was my first experience in Death Valley at shooting video credentialed on the visitor sideline. And I looked around and there was a fucking tiger behind my ear.
Right.
And I freaked out and dropped my camera. That's how scary that shit is.
Yeah.
That's a real thing because there's a real tiger right on the
That's right. It's right there, right?
It's real. It's right
and you
there.
don't know if that cage, how well that cage is made, because there was 5 cages down in DeRidder that was blowtorching that thing together, right? So you're not sure. Well, back in the day, when Mike would ride around, they'd parade him around and they'd park him. Well, back in the day when he would come by the student section, they would make Mike growl. Literally, they'd put a microphone down by him, and he would let out a growl, and the students would go nuts, right? Well, PETA stepped in. This is, I guess, late 90s, and pitched a fit about how we were mistreating him. Now, I can tell you right now, if I could trade my $3 million house in Atlanta for Mike the Tiger's cage, I would trade right now on the spot. That's how incredible his home is on LSU's campus. This is the best best treated animal in the world. But what wound up happening was PETA got them to stop not only getting him from growling, but then stopped him from coming in. Well, when Jeff Landry, the new Republican governor, got in, he goes, it's like Trump getting into the White House. His first 100 things that he was going to do, I think bringing back Mike the Tiger in Baton Rouge, in Tiger Stadium, was like number 3 on the 100 list. I mean, it would have made Huey P. Long, lifelong Democrat, even smile. So what I understand has happened, this is the first foray to testing out bringing Mike the Tiger back in. But since Mike has never been in a cage and in like a small confinement and in something as loud as this, they don't know how Mike's going to be. So I think they've brought in. And look, I have no idea whether the rumors are true that it's Aubie or not. But there's another Tiger that's getting brought in to be Mike the Tiger tomorrow. So guys, it's Alabama, it's LSU, it's at night. The fog's gonna be rolling in. The humidity is so thick you could cut it with a spoon, and we're gonna have a live Tiger on the sidelines. There's no telling what the hell could happen.
Dave,
Mike the Tiger had a busy week because on Tuesday he was somehow keeping those 21 million voters that voted in 2020 away from the polls. You know, what happened to those 21 million voters?
Where did they go? Alien abduction? I digress. All right. Let's switch gears here.
Well, I can tell you there's 100 illegal aliens in every Loves from Atlanta.
All right, executive producer saying no more politics.
Yeah.
Stop and shut up or you're all fired.
Let me tell y'all something. Florida goes to Texas. Florida goes to Texas tomorrow, and we don't know if DJ Lagway is going to play or not. I don't know, but I want to get y'all's thoughts. Dave, what kind of chance do the Gators have without Lagway? And we heard it yesterday. Scott Strickland, the athletic director at Florida, is going to say that, Billy Napier is going to be back because if he's out, he goes down with him.
I think they have a fighting chance. I hope Lagway plays, and I'm fortunately a busy workday. I missed I missed the Hall of Famer at the first part of the show, but so I don't know Lagway's status, but I think if he plays, they definitely have a chance. If he doesn't play, they still have a fighting chance. This is a team that has progressively gotten better on both sides of the line of scrimmage and doing things. So I know our man who just joined begs to differ, but I think it's going to be a football game.
Ken, what do you think is going to happen out there? That you're going to be in Austin, I would bet. I don't like to use the word assume, make an ass of myself, but
that's right.
The atmosphere.
So I'll be down there. I'll be down there. 11 o'clock start. So I think Texas is gonna I think Texas is gonna win this game pretty easily tomorrow. I don't see Lagway playing at all. Everything I've read says he's not gonna play. Texas is a 21-point favorite. I don't know if they'll cover that. I'm not much into that whole business. I'll leave that to Frank Duffy. He's our man on that. He's our man on that front. And Texas has played very, very lackluster football the last two games. Versus Georgia and then versus Vanderbilt. Quinn Ewers has thrown 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in those.
Well, talking about what he just said, Quinn Ewers, Frank, all that being said, Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, nobody has a quarterback room like that. They have to make a switch. They got a pretty good backup.
Well, Texas needs a good game. Let's put it that way. Texas does have to come out and play efficient ball and stop turning the ball over. That's critical because when you start looming toward the end of this season and you see that Texas A&M visit that's coming up, trust me, I know turnovers killed us at Texas A&M, and it would hurt Texas as well. Texas has to get that cleaned up. But I think it's Ewers the whole way. I think you got to ride with him all the way through to the SEC championship game if they're able to make it in. And look, we both know it's going to come down to the Texas A&M winner that's going to be playing Georgia in Atlanta. So they got to clean that up, though.
Well, the other thing is the last 2 games is that Texas has so many playmakers, both at running back and at wide receiver. In fact, we just had Jonte Cook yesterday by mutual decision has left the team. That's a 5-star 2023 wide receiver from the Metroplex, DeSoto High School. That dude's a stud, but he couldn't even crack the top 6 in the wide receiver rotation since Mississippi State. And so he's just shut it down. And I was very surprised at that. I guess he's just going to get ready for the December 9th portal. And believe it or not, I read this morning, guys. You can't recruit yet, but just a little teasing there on social media. Both Oregon, Ole Miss, and Georgia have already said on social media, "Hey, Jonte, we're sure interested in you. Come see us." And but that being said, Texas having all these playmakers, nobody's made a big play in the last two games. Versus Georgia and versus Vanderbilt. So against Florida, somebody's got to come out and make a big play.
I agree. Hey, Dave, I know you said you've got to leave about 45 after the hour. Your take on that Florida game and also Georgia Ole Miss real quick.
Yeah, and I'll say a little bit longer, but yeah, I'm super excited about the Georgia Ole Miss game. Unfortunately, it comes on at the same time as my Army Black Knight, so I'll be switching back and forth. But yeah, I mean, this is Lane Kiffin's time to shine. I mean, this is his opportunity. I think Georgia's going to win, but Ole Miss looked essentially unbeatable last weekend, and can they sustain momentum? Hosting the Bulldogs? We shall see. I'm also super excited about the South Carolina Vanderbilt game, and what's going to happen there in Nashville. Now a really tough place to play.
Yeah, well, I mean, guys, you look at South Carolina going to Vandy, to the Skinner box, the smallest stadium in college football besides Tulsa. That, Frank, I mean, tell me why Vanderbilt doesn't play well. They've done it every week. They just find excuses to win with Diego Pavia, state wrestling champion from Volcano High School in Albuquerque. Is that how they pronounce it out there, kid? Albuquerque? Frank? Albuquerque.
All I know about Albuquerque is Bugs Bunny kept taking wrong turns there. That's all I remember.
Exactly what I was thinking, Frank.
That's right.
He pops out of his hole.
Hey, listen. Yep.
Holy
By the way, Vanderbilt's become a little snake pit, hadn't it? I mean, who would have thought underneath all that scaffolding that was going to be a tough little place to play? By the way, I think Pavia could very well become the Taysom Hill of the NFL, the next Taysom Hill when he gets into the NFL. He is such a Swiss Army knife sort of player, and he's tough as a $3 steak. So It's going to be interesting. Vanderbilt's just playing competitive ball. It really are. And they think they're in everything.
Yeah. Frank, I hear that train coming along in the background. Say hello to our good friend, Boxcar Willie. Remember him? Boxcar Willie, ordered before midnight, only $19.95. Boxcar Willie's greatest hits, Mule Train. Woo! Hey, guys. I got
the drunks don't have to dodge enough. Now we got trains flying through.
That's right. All right, I'm gonna run down the schedule here. Brad Bellamy's going to join us. I guess Doug has not tagged out on his. He always goes for the big buck up in Illinois. I guess you'll have to get yourself a new map. But I know our good friend, the general manager of Landers Ford, Memphis.com, Brad Bellamy will join us about 9, the top of the hour, for a few picks. But look at the schedule. We've already done Alabama, LSU. Auburn, a 7-point underdog to off this weekend. They'll struggle. Arkansas is off. Florida's at Texas. Georgia's at Ole Miss. Kentucky is off, fortunately. You've got to go down here to Mississippi State's at Tennessee. We'll come back to that one. Missouri plays Oklahoma in Mizzou, Faurot Field. So let's look real quick. Anything jump at anybody on this panel on the college football roundtable? Mississippi State at Tennessee, Dave.
Well, I was going to comment, if I could, on the Missouri Oklahoma game.
Yeah, either one of them.
I thought Missouri got a gift from the selection committee to be, I think, what were they, 22nd or 23rd? I thought that was a gift. Obviously, the SEC helped them there because they don't look like the number two. Yeah, they don't look like a ranked team right now, but they haven't. But they were given a gift, and now they can host Oklahoma and they can validate and maybe move up a couple notches. So they have all the motivation they need right now to finish the season strong. And if you look at the rest of their schedule, they're all winnable games. So kudos to Missouri if they can keep winning. My team's ranked number 25, so I hope they lose. But we shall see.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll just say this, guys. I mean, this is the one game, in my opinion, that Oklahoma has a chance of winning if they're gonna get to 6 games and be bowl eligible. So if they can somehow snatch this game, which I think is a real reach, but they've got LSU and Alabama, which I don't think they have a chance at either one of those games. This is their one and only game, and unfortunately, it's on the road. Otherwise, Oklahoma's not going to make a bowl for the first time in 25 years.
Yeah, here and this speaking of boots and kicking you with the boots, man. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. I want to say something. I'm going to try to sneak out there later today. They are opened Monday through Saturday, as they say in the South. That's Saturday, but little subtitles under there. 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. Higher Boots, the first boots ever made, first cowboy boots in America. They've got great-looking women's clothing, women's boots, men's boots, kids' boots. They've got everything in there. These STS purses, STS luggage, Filson, Barber. Great-looking selection of clothing. More duck heads. The only place you'll find more duck heads is at Claypool's Reservoir when there were 500,000 ducks in one shot. You get that joke.
Or more in Gaston's closet.
Yeah, or more Gaston's closet. That's right. But HewlettandDunn.com. Charles Hall, his wife Laura, J.M. Huffman, Raven, the whole Squidward, the whole crew out there. They are there to serve you. Great people. You live in the Mid-South. You live anywhere. Go to HewlettandDunn.com. Frank, I got to ask you, Oklahoma. Joe Castiglione and Mike Del Conte, two great paisanos, great Italian Americans, athletic directors. I think Joe is going, we got some work to do at Oklahoma. You remember 2003 when LSU beat Oklahoma 21-14 for the national championship. Y'all always get to play in New Orleans. You are so damn lucky. But what about Oklahoma this year? What's your take on them?
Well,
and you think they're going to catch up? Frank,
it is crazy, by the way. LSU's played all 5 of our national championship games in New Orleans, including Clemson and the Sugar Bowl. To come back in, I might have a better reception in there.
Yeah.
Is the reception better there? Okay. So here's the thing. Yeah, it's crazy. LSU, all of our 5 national championship games going back even to 58 were played in New Orleans. So we played Clemson for the national championship. And, of course, the 4 recent ones, 3 worked out well. That one against Alabama, that didn't work out so well. But I think Oklahoma. I think Venables is on the hot seat. I think this was such a big deal for them coming into the SEC. I have quite a few Oklahoma friends. They're embarrassed how bad they looked, and the fact that Texas looked so good this year, and more than likely has a great shot of playing for the SEC championship and being in the 12-team playoff, that it makes it even harder for Oklahoma. So I know the buyout's big, but if Venables does not show improvement, and especially on their defensive side, I mean, that's the big disappointment. You can kind of explain away the offense with young quarterbacks, but the defense should not be playing this poorly for Oklahoma. And let me tell you, without Auburn not running the ball with that last couple of minutes, they're lucky they have that SEC win. So yeah, I think to Ken's point, I think they lose this week. I think they lose the last 2. Ooh. I don't think Oklahoma goes bowling.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm forgetting. I know Norv Turner was Jimmy Johnson's offensive coordinator for the Cowboys. I'm forgetting who the defensive coordinator was. Ken will know, but
Dave Wannstedt. Dave Wannstedt.
That's right. And that was a case where both coordinators, you're like, oh, they're going to be great head coaches, and neither of them could transition into being good, head coaches. And we're kind of seeing that with Venables now, where he was just an all-world defensive coordinator, and everyone thought, well, he's going to be a great head coach. Just hasn't happened.
Well, think one of the greatest photos I've ever seen of a coaching staff, and Tommy Tuberville talked about it on this show. It was Jimmy Johnson's staff, Dave Wannstedt, Pete Carroll, Coach Orgeron, Tommy Tuberville, Butch Davis. It was unbelievable. But one of the cool bits of trivia, speaking of Arkansas coaching tree with Frank Broyles, that coaching tree, Raymond Berry, Pete Carroll, you had Joe Gibbs. There were
wasn't Ken Hatfield? Wasn't Ken Hatfield also in that chain?
Yeah,
he was.
Ken is from. He's from Helena, Arkansas, where my grandparents are from, over in the Delta. But yeah, it's just amazing when you start looking at that coaching tree that Frank Broyles, I think Johnny Majors coached with him at some time. But guys, looking at the SEC right now, and when Brad joins us, we'll get into this. It's fun having him on. But I got to say, the interest, here it is, November 8th, guys. There's no slowing down. And people are chomping at the bits. Again, you watch college football, you're up before sunrise on a Saturday, and you catch up on your sleep on Sundays. At least in the South, that's what you do. You're napping while you watch the NFL. I don't nap watching college football.
And Rob, now with the ABC, you get those 3 great SEC games in a row. I mean, I don't even have to reach for the remote. That's all on the big screen, and I got my other 3 TVs going for other stuff. That's really cool. I've enjoyed ABC handling the SEC. It's been really good.
Well, the only thing
my dad's 88 and he needs a lot of sleep. And but we're going to eat dinner tonight. Our reservations are at 5:00, so we got the senior citizen time slot. He'll be in bed at 7:30.
Are you a Boca del Boca?
He's up and at him on Saturday on game day at 8:00, getting ready.
Don't knock 5:00 dinner, man. I'm all for that.
Hey, let me tell you something, man. The only thing that would make this, and Frank's right, about the Saturday trifecta, 11, 2:30, and then the night game would be growing up with Mid-South Wrestling on Saturday mornings on WMC TV5, 1960 Union Avenue. Dave Brown and Lance Banana Nose Russell with Jerry Lawler, Plowboy Frazier, Jackie Fargo, Handsome Jimmy Valiant,
the Von Brauners.
But look at the three. You got Florida, Texas leading off. Then you got Georgia and Ole Miss, and then you got Alabama at night. Are you kidding me? That's like
hasn't been that good since Bearcat Brown and Tojo Yamamoto.
You go.
That's college football porn right there, boys.
It is. My good friend, Dr. Whit Wills, dentist in Memphis, was flying last year on a plane going out west. He was texting when they were sitting on the tarmac. He said, guys, it's in my Curcio group in the Catholic Church. He goes, you're not going to believe who's on the plane two rows in front of me. He goes, I'm shaking. I'm like, everybody's like, who? He goes, we're like a president, Urban Meyer. He goes, Coco Beware.
He goes, speaking of doctors, Dr. Ken Ramey and the interns.
Yes. Those were the he goes, someone goes, does he have the parrot on him? He goes, nope, but he's wearing the cool shirt. But look, Saturdays, it's crazy. Ken, we'll all admit, it's the great line in that Waylon Jennings song. I've always been crazy, but it's kept me from going insane.
That's right.
That's where we are right now. And by the way, who's the king of swing, king of country
That'd
music
be
in
Bob
Texas?
Wills.
Bob Wills. Ken sent me a
still the
CD,
king.
and it's in my truck. He's still the king. Bob Wills, and that song by Waylon Jennings is one of the greatest songs ever written. But I'm going to let everybody just kind of go at it like sharks.
But Rob, this week, it's even 3 hours before that. Because let me tell you, boys and girls, set your TiVos or your DVRs or whatever the hell you got. Because Nick Saban sitting in Baton Rouge for 3 freaking hours.
That's going to kill it.
Guys, I posted this on Sunday. I said, Nick, you better tell Miss Terry to stay home for this one, because this is not going to want to be. She's not going to want to be within earshot. Let me tell you, every drunk Cajun and his brother is working with crayons right now on poster board.
Oh God, yes.
With the most vile stuff that you and look. Our getting over Nick Saban. We've gone through a lot of stages in 18 years. And the fact that he's left Alabama's sideline has softened it a bit. But I will tell you, the last stage of grief is going to be between the hours of 9 a.m. and noon on ESPN will be the last. All of the venom is going to be ejected like a cottonmouth in a Louisiana swamp. Boom.
There you go.
Out. Just letting you know. Got a TiVo, and I'm telling you, it's going to be great.
Yeah, and Nick Saban's great. Nick Saban's great on ESPN Game Day.
He is. He is so good.
Really is.
And if ESPN would be smart, just let. I would love to see Urban Meyer on there. People, alpha male culture rules. College football is so much fun when you've got people that are not afraid to voice an opinion, and that's the great thing about. That's what we need more of. But I'll tell you something, guys. The ESPN, the Fox, CBS. I don't know about CBS. Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler doing these Big Ten games. It's not right. It's like Chuck Oliver, our good friend Frank, says, I listen to his show every day. And he goes, they're family. I mean, they have been coming. My kids, when Vern Lundquist was on the show with us a couple of years ago, Wilson said, Dad, he said, you, Max, me, Hallie, my daughter, not as much watching it, but she loves football, but not with us. On Saturday, she was with the girls. But Wilson, Max, Grandbob, my dad, we were brought up. If we weren't at an Auburn game in Auburn or on the road, we were gathered around the TV on Saturday with Vern Lundquist and Gary Danielson. I mean, and guys, we all know it because, like, my 96-year-old dad, he's going to ask me today, I guarantee you, after the show, he's going to go, boy, what games are on tomorrow? And I'm going to say the same thing as I say, Dad, just turn on the TV to ESPN and start scrolling. He goes, how do I do that? I'm like, I tell you that every day. But he watches Paul Feinbaum's show every day, and he's decided that Jim from Tuscaloosa is an institutionalized anomaly. But the interest in college football, it just keeps getting better, and we've got all these problems that we talk about. But, guys, let me go back. Norman Jetmanson wrote this book. He did a great documentary, he and David Cruz, a couple of years ago, called Sewanee Unrivaled, 1899.org. Get this book for Christmas. It's a coffee table book and the DVD, but it should be mandatory viewing the night before the first day of practice and again before the first game for your football team to remind them that November 6th, 1869, 4 years after the war between the Yankees and the Americans had subsided, we started playing college football. Rutgers 6, Princeton 4. We have been through world wars. We have been through pandemics and scamdemics and everything you can imagine. And college football perseveres. It keeps going. It ain't going anywhere, guys. We're crazy, but it keeps us from going insane. But the love of college football gets stronger because of the people and the stories and the great storytellers like Ken and what we do on this show. If we don't keep telling the stories of what got us here, we ain't going to go anywhere from here.
I got 3 bucket list items. I want to go to Army Navy. I want to go to an Iron Bowl. I've never been to an Iron Bowl.
Oh.
And my third one that I want to do on a weekend that LSU's off between now and death is I want to drive up 75 and go up to a game near Mount Eagle at Sewanee.
Yeah.
I'm going to go watch a game at Sewanee's old stadium.
Yep.
It's on bucket list. I want to go up there. I pass there every time that I go to Nashville. When I go up Mount Eagle and back down, I see that sign for Sewanee, and I'm so tempted. I want to go. So those are my 3 bucket lists. And by the way, if you're ever going to put together an Army-Navy trip for this group, it's got to be this year. I am so impressed with the Black Knights of the Hudson. They have made me so much money this year. I can't tell you. And Navy, though Navy, Navy
That
threw
is
a,
Sewanee. That's in the
that-
church at Sewanee.
that's the chapel, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Navy threw a shoe against Notre Dame. I was obviously 6 turnovers will do that to you, but I think the Army Navy game this year will be one of the most watched games in that series ever, and something's going to be on the line because I think Army still has a shot of being into the playoff as being the number one of the top of the Little Five.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all depends with Bryson Daly. If Bryson Daly can heal, then I think they have a shot. I think they have a shot against Notre Dame if he's healthy. I mean, they averaged, I don't know, 480, 490 yards of offense, and then last week they only had 250 with him out. So it all really depends on him. I'm a homer. I make this point almost every show, but I think he is arguably the most important player on a team in terms of, I mean, without him, they are maybe bowl eligible. With him, they've got a legitimate shot at the playoff.
Well, you do know, Dave, since Ron and I watched them coming back from Beast Barracks, I'm taking credit for this year for the Army football team. I'm just letting y'all know.
Hey, let me bring in.
Can I share a point with Dave before he goes, please? This is very important, Dave. And I thought about you when I was told this story earlier this week. So my pharmacist, she knows that I cover college football, and so her son is a cadet right now at West Point, and so she and I have talked about the Army Navy game, and I've been fortunate enough to go a couple of times, and definitely throw me in that pool because I definitely want to go back, especially this year. But anyway, so she is just busting with pride. They were up there. Her and her husband went from Dallas, the Metroplex, up to West Point for their last home game. And are you ready for this? The commandant or the commander of his group gave them tickets. Her son, the parents. The commandant gave my pharmacist and her husband tickets to the Army Navy game.
Wow, that's a big deal.
Those are
That'd be good.
And tickets are going for about 1,500, 2,000 on
that's what I heard
right now.
You know what? Hey, let me say this. Brad Bellamy, general manager, LandersFordMemphis.com, the #1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South. And again, Brad knows it better than anybody. But what you love about a business is what they do, investing in their people. When you go out to Landers Ford, everybody's running around. They seem happy, and they're a team. I mean, it's a culture they've created. But their name is on 6 sports stadiums in the Mid-South. The Landers Bowl last week, Collierville High School versus Houston High School, both Landers stadiums. But they are a great dealership. They're the title sponsor of the Touchdown Club in Memphis. And Brad, say a little, what you want about Landers, more about the business for people to know. And then we're going to talk some college football with you if we twist your arm, if you like that.
Man, it sounds great. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be on with you guys this morning. How cool to have Urban Meyer on earlier in the broadcast for you, Rob. I know that's a big
that was fun.
A big get. So that's fantastic. So it's been a fun week, and starting a new month. As we touched base on last week, just remember all your listeners, any referrals we get, an extra $500 a month in November off any car deal. Trying to make sure that we take care of our SEC Sidelines family. But Landers Ford in Collierville, Houston Levy, and Poplar open 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. in service, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. in sales. We're here to take care of any of your vehicle needs, whether new, used, or also servicing your vehicle, all makes in our quick lane. One thing I want to touch on this week, guys, we talked about Bronco a couple of times over the last couple of broadcasts. One thing I want to make sure all of our fans know, if you buy a new Bronco, Ford has set up one of the most amazing experiences to where you get to drive a Bronco fully equipped, and you get to either do it in Vegas, Moab, Utah, Austin, Texas. They built a new track in Tennessee, and you get to see all the capability of Bronco, and you don't have to worry about killing your vehicle. It's Ford's vehicle that you get to drive, and it's just such a cool experience. I took my wife a couple of years ago to Las Vegas to do it, and it was the closest thing we've gone through to childbirth. because the whole entire time she was freaking out because she never thought the Bronco could do what the Bronco could do. And so when we're sideways or when I'm on two wheels, she was like, "You need to stop. This is not right." And it was awesome and a fantastic.
It's a great vehicle, and you see that I'm an F-150 guy. They're just Ford trucks built. I mean, there's just it's a great experience. But I love the dealership. And folks, when you go out there, ask for Brad Bellamy. He's the quarterback. It's like an RPO. He'll hook you up with the great salesman, great staff they have out there. And what people are telling me is when they go out there, it doesn't take that long, and they're really good at what they do, but they invest in the most valuable assets you have as a business. They invest in their people, and you can tell it when you're at the dealership because they treat the customers and the people so well. I have someone told me the other day he's bought 6 vehicles from Landers, and he's got family members. We're spreading the word about this. So damn proud to have them as a sponsor. Brad, what are your games you like this week? Ken and Dave had to tap out to go run corporate America, but Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, out in Dallas. He'll be covering Florida, Texas. Frank Duffy will be covering LSU and Alabama and Baton Rouge. But any of these SEC games or games that you want to talk about, let her rip.
And by the way, if covering is being polluted in bourbon, yes, I will be covering the LSU Alabama game. I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yes,
hey, Brad,
I should have some Avita Ambers while you're down there to chase it.
Hey, Brad, I just wanted to let you know that since me and you were talking about the Broncos last week, I have seen all kinds of Broncos driving around the roads here in Dallas. So, it's one of those things that once you talk about something, you start noticing it. Man, they've been all over the place here.
Yeah,
and I got $2,000 to get you out of your Jeep and get you in a Bronco. So just come up, drive up.
Hey, be careful what you wish for.
Hey, and the results of Tuesday, you'll be able to deduct any interest expense that's coming up. How cool is that, huh, Brad?
that's right.
Everybody's got more money because of the stock market over the last 2 days. So come on,
Amen.
man. I'll take care of you.
Amen. Thank you,
Brad.
Man, I'll tell you. I mean, back to the games. I mean, what I reflected back on the last 11 weeks of the college football season and realized I should never bet on a game that involves Ole Miss because every week, every week. And last week, I mean, I had a 10-team parlay where I plussed up the odds. I had Arkansas plus 20.5. I hit 9 of the 10. That was the only one I missed. I mean, I can't pick an Ole Miss game to save my life. So with that, I mean, Georgia's Georgia, and there's a lot of pressure on Ole Miss to win that game this week. I mean, what an exciting week of football, and who would have ever thought heading into to this weekend that the Vandy, South Carolina game would actually mean something?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think anybody would have. And you talk about Ole Miss, guys, how hard you look at quarterbacks, the trend. I look at stocks, what's trending, the 200-day moving average. Well, Carson Beck not trending so well. I think 8 or 9 interceptions the last 3 games, but they've won all 3 of them. That's because he's got a great defense. Jackson Dart, Ole Miss, prior to last weekend, had only scored more than 23 points in one conference game. That was when they beat Oklahoma after trailing 14-10 at the half, 26-14 in Oxford. I'm with you. Ole Miss is a tough one to figure out, but at home, desperate, loser leaves town. In their case, Georgia has a loss to give. Who do you like that's desperate, Ken?
You talking about me?
Yeah, but yeah.
I agree with Brad. I can never and like I've said before, I've got a man crush on Lane Kiffin because I just think he's such a cool guy, and I've enjoyed visiting with him over the years, and plus I just love the way he dresses. I think he dresses like the Great Gatsby. But I really do, and I told him that, and he was very impressed by that when he was at Florida Atlantic. But I can very easily see Ole Miss winning this game, and I can very easily see Ole Miss just getting rolled in this game. So I can just never I can just never predict how they're going to go. I mean, you're right. I watched that Ole Miss game last week, and Jackson Dart was just golly. I mean, just looked unstoppable. And I think he's very underrated. You know, Nick Saban said the most underrated quarterback in the country, or the most underrated player in the country, is Kevin Jennings, the quarterback at SMU. And I watched him play last week. Yeah. I mean, Jackson Dart is right up there with him. So, you know, it would definitely help Texas if Ole Miss won that game. But I just can't read it. I mean, Brad, what do you think?
I mean, if Ole Miss's line plays like they did last week, they can win the game. But the problem is, I don't know if Georgia's got a cornerback as bad as what Arkansas had last week that can get burned like that. I mean, it's a tough call. I think Georgia has to win this game from this perspective. There's been a lot of talk this week about will an SEC team that gets into the conference championship, if they lose, make the playoff.
Right.
I think the only way that can happen is they have one loss. I do not see any 3-loss team making the playoff, even if they make the SEC championship game. You know, and I agree. And I think it's ridiculous the way that the schedules have laid out with the Big Ten. You know, the fact that Indiana really only has one tough game, and that's Ohio State. The fact that Penn State really only has one tough game, and that's Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State and Oregon are going to earn it. But Penn State and Indiana are going to get in most likely and not beat anybody, you know. And I feel like right now there is such a value being put on who you lose to and not who you beat that it's screwed up the whole entire scenario right now with the playoff. I mean, Boise State hasn't beat anybody. They lost a close game to Oregon when Oregon was really trying to figure themselves out.
Yeah.
If Army beats Notre Dame, they got to get in. But
they will.
I was talking about.
Absolutely.
The Army-Navy game happens after the playoffs are decided. So Army could get into the playoff, lose that game, and it's still in the playoff.
Crazy.
So it's a very weird scenario that college football is set up.
Well, Brad, I'm going to throw a little bit of history at you. You just talked about that's the week after the playoffs have been decided, guys. That's like the old days back in '64 when Alabama was declared national champion and lost 21-17 in the Orange Bowl to Texas because they used to decide it before the bowl games. And then in 1973, UPI, Notre Dame beat Alabama 24-23, yet Alabama had already been declared national champion. We have not seen anything like this, guys, since then, Frank. I mean, that is weird.
It really is. And I agree with Brad. You don't want to be the team that loses in the SEC championship game. That's why I think Georgia's got some breathing room. Ole Miss, of course, doesn't. You get 3 losses, you're done. That's why the LSU Alabama game is an elimination game. It's LSU Alabama this Saturday night in Tiger Stadium is going to be the first playoff game of this year.
Yeah, and then you got them all following suit. I mean that.
Right.
Well, actually, I mean, in a lot of ways, that South Carolina, Texas A&M one was because I don't think A&M can make it now. I'd be shocked for them to be able to beat Texas and then win the SEC championship game. That would be very surprising to me, as bad as they were in the game. And then the Vandy game is huge for Alabama, right? If Vandy beats South Carolina, it continues to legitimize that loss, which again, the losses seem to be very important right now. And unless you're Notre Dame, and there's too much money for Notre Dame. Who cares? They lost to Northern Illinois. They went out. They're in. Again, not really beating anybody. I'm hoping Mike Norvell shows up this week with Florida State. 26.5 points. That's a lot of pride points, guys. But, you know, in terms of picks, under 64.5 in the Army game, if Army's quarterback's out, I just don't see how that game becomes a shootout. And that's what you have to have with North Texas to have 64.5 points. Their defense is really strong at Army. I know North Texas offense has been rolling, but if Army's quarterback is not playing, I think that's going to be one that's interesting to me. I'm going to ride Vandy, guys. You know, they keep paying off. You got to keep riding your horse until they lose. Unfortunately, I'm trying to decide, do I get off the Navy wagon or not? But Navy only a 3-point favorite at South Florida. The spreads are weird this week. Like Rice really destroys Navy, and they're a 9-point underdog. It's now moved to 8 against Memphis. Memphis gets beat by UTSA, and they're favored by 9 against Rice that just beat Navy. It's weird to me how some of these scenarios have set up. What's the latest on Florida and Petway? Is he playing or not playing?
It's 50-50. No one knows, and no one's going to know. I mean, that's just the way it is at Florida. We won't know. They don't put out depth charts anymore, so we don't know. We won't know until until he takes the field. So, I mean, we've had rumors. Oh, yeah, he's having beer practices and all that kind of stuff, but nothing's confirmed. Nothing's real. And Napier's going to keep it that way. I mean, obviously.
I mean, if he plays, I think they cover that game. I don't think they win, but I definitely think they cover.
Well, they're a different team.
I agree. Sure. I agree.
Yeah, they're a different team. Well, he just brings back that third option, right? You get the play action. It freezes everyone. Speed on the outside. Guys have a chance to block. You give all that. It all changes. And I loved Graham Mertz, and I thought he was great, and he did a lot of great things for Florida, no doubt. But Lagway is that extra gear, and I think that is Florida really needs to win. Because sometimes they don't have the best personnel on the field, so they got to have the best strategy, and that's where coaching comes into play. And that's why I think as announced yesterday, Billy Napier will be the head coach of the Florida Gators next year.
Brad, that's a strange. There's an analogy in the stock market: buy at the wake, sell at the wedding. You buy the bad news, you sell in anticipation of the good earnings. That's what's going on in college football. You mentioned it with those crazy lines. I was listening to Memphis Talk Radio yesterday. The Memphis fans, I mean, they're not showing up. And now the expectation is, well, if we're not going to make the playoffs, holy cow. I remember when Memphis program, Kroger couldn't give away enough tickets. And now they should have people showing up. And I think the players are like, good God. But I think that it's that way, Frank, in a lot of places. I mean, what is Tulane? Look what Tulane is doing now with John Summerall, who came from Troy. John Hartwell was instrumental in getting him hired there. This is the craziest thing, and Brad hit on it about, right now, the fans are expecting, well, it's raised expectations, hadn't it, Frank?
Well, look at Tulane. Tulane's had 2 great years. I mean, off the Cotton Bowl, beating USC 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and a good year last year. And look, I went to the Kansas State game. I did a daily double. I did the Tulane game at noon, and then I ran up to LSU to watch us play at night. So I watched 2 football games that day. And look, they couldn't have been different. We wasn't playing anybody. We were playing Nicholls State, and Tiger Stadium was filled to the rafters. And Tulane's playing Kansas State, and it was half full. I mean, it was a wide open stadium. So, look, when a team's playing well, like Uptown New Orleans, which I could hit a 3-iron from here, you got to support your teams. And you're exactly right, Rob. A place like Memphis is rabid for football. I'm absolutely shocked. I mean, they're just 2 or 3 years removed from having College game day there, where you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting somebody in downtown Memphis. Beale Street was so packed, you couldn't believe it. It was probably one of the greatest game day atmospheres I've ever witnessed on TV.
Definitely was. And
Well, no, I mean, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was pointing to you. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, the one thing though, if you look at most of these college programs that struggle to get their fans to show up for games, they're all in major cities. You know, Tulane's in New Orleans, Memphis is here, and Memphis has, and we, Rob, you and I have talked about this. Most of the people that live in Memphis, they're Memphis fans and somebody else.
Yes.
And Alabama, and UT, and Ole Miss, and Mississippi State, and there's always even schools like Louisville and Cincinnati, they don't draw the fans like college campus, college towns draw the fans. Yeah. Even Miami or LA. It's just a different atmosphere. Yeah. And I think it makes it really challenging, especially when you're playing Rice and Marshall and North Texas and Charlotte and these other teams that don't really have a history in college football.
Yeah.
To say, okay, come out to the game and forego watching some of these other great games we're talking about. You know, I'm hoping there's a lot of people that show up for the Memphis game tonight because there's not a lot of competition other than high school football. I would rather that game been on a Thursday than a Friday. But I mean, I'm going to go out to the game tonight, but it'll be my first game this year. And I'm hoping that Memphis, you know, that they show up and they play with a heartbeat because, you know, they still got Tulane on the schedule.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen at this point with Navy. Like I said, I don't understand how they're only a 3-point favorite against South Florida. Somebody knows something I don't, obviously. And you know, and then, you know, on the flip side, just going back to the SEC, Alabama has struggled on the road. And, you know, I think Alabama is a better team. But it makes me nervous, their penalty problems, especially in road games. And this isn't just DeBoer. I mean, this is, you know, when they lost to Tennessee 2 years ago, the penalties were out of control. When they lost
17,
ago,
and a lot of
pre-snap control. And that's
a lot of pre-snap penalties, and you're going to have that on Saturday night. It's going to be a lot of noise. There's going to be a lot of that going on. So I think that's where Bama has had their problem this year is they haven't had that Nick Saban discipline. And you do see that in their pre-snap penalties.
But it's not even Nick Saban discipline at this point because he was struggling with it at the end of his time with Alabama too. I mean, the penalties over the last few years, I mean, that they've become a problem. And I don't know if it's part of why he retired is because it's harder to discipline guys in NIL and transfer portal world. And so you've seen some of this go away. And I think the other factor, especially with pre-snap penalties, with some of these teams, when you have a synergy and you play together, especially offensive line, you know how people move. It's a dance, right?
Yeah.
And as you're changing and you're not growing together as a core unit, you have two guys that, you know, three guys that have been there for 2 years and then two guys come on the line. It's really tough in some of these positions for them to be able to work together. I mean, you see it with quarterbacks and receivers. They don't know where these guys are going to be sometimes. Yeah. And it becomes a struggle.
Yeah. I'm going to throw something at you. You know, you hear a lot of times about a team wins a big game, they'll be flat the next week. That's insane. I'm in sales. When you sell a truck, it's a lot easier to go sell another one an hour later than if you hadn't sold one in 2 weeks. Positive synergy. You got to conceive it, believe it, achieve it. You put junk in your head, junk comes out. You've got to expect to win at everything you do. And I look at the mindset of a lot of fans is they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Okay? If you want that to happen, keep thinking that way. And I just look at fan bases. You go back in the mid and late 80s at Ole Miss, actual attendance numbers at some of their games, and this came from a guy in the ticket office at an SEC school, said they were claiming 30, 35. There were 10 or 15,000 actually in the stadium. We talk about attendance like now it was horrible in the 70s and 80s at a lot of colleges around the country. Bowl games in the early 80s, I think maybe what saved them was that Holiday Bowl in the early 80s, SMU and BYU, that crazy game we all remember. But, Brad, you look at the Liberty Bowl in Memphis. Harold Grader, our friend, Touchdown Club. I love Harold. I told Harold the other night, I said, Harold, we need to start a college football, like a TV roundtable, something like that. We'll do it on here. But we've got to promote college football. The big city in America, 1 million plus, the 10th largest city in America that packs them in, 102,000 plus every week is DKR in Austin. Another big city, the capital, Columbia, South Carolina, Williams-Brice. They pack them in every game. I think Brad's right. There's the I'm a Memphis fan and. Now, look, every Catholic I know, and I'm an Episcopalian convert, every one of them is a Notre Dame fan in addition to whoever they pull for, because you grow up going to Mass, and we're going to wrap it up here in a second. You grow up going to Mass, and the priest is in there during the homily. If Notre Dame won or lost, he's going to talk about it. I mean, you can't recruit better than that. I'll just throw that in for good measure.
I grew up as a Catholic, and I thought a Catholic prayer was Lindsey Nelson saying, after 3 downs and a Notre Dame punt. I thought that was one of the homilies.
Yeah, Notre Dame at the 42-yard line. Fitzgerald passes the ball to O'Malley,
right.
back to O'Reilly. Here come the Irish. But,
Yeah.
Brad, look, we're going to wrap up now. But, Brad, before you go, let me say we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We're the most blessed people. Find ways to go out and help people. Support our sponsors. They keep us on the air. Tap on these hyperlinks and these QR codes that are on the screen. And find excuses to win, people, every day. Brad, close us out with some words of wisdom, what people can do starting right after this show, coming out and seeing you at Landers.
And it's Friday. It's a great day. Great deals here at Landers Ford, guys. But, Rob, you're exactly right. If you're not finding a nonprofit, you're not finding somebody to give back, find somebody. We all have passions, whether it's football or it's buying something or it's toys. But we all have passions. But, guys, we all got to give back. I said something on Tuesday, before the election, not knowing how things were going to go. But everybody says we're not going to survive the next 4 years. Half the country is not going to survive the next 4 years. We survived the last 4. We survived the 4 before that. Guys, the next 4 years are going to be great, and we're going to survive them, and we're going to have another election in 4 years, and people are going to say the same thing, and we're going to be here. So we are all blessed to be here and all blessed to be Americans and all blessed to be able to have time to talk about the greatest sport, college football. Thank you guys for having me on. It's always fun to be here with y'all.
Hey, what an honor for everybody. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. We'll see you bright and early Monday morning for executive producer Brendan Martin. What a great show. You can't get anybody better than him. I started off with Coach Urban Meyer and Buddy Martin. And Brendan, man, have a great weekend. There's a lot of football. Get some batteries.
Brad, I got a Chevy Tahoe that's old. It used to be Terry Bradshaw's. You think I got some trade-in value? Get some of those new Broncos? Huh? It's got 200,000 miles on it.
I love it.
I got light blue.
Hey,
wrap it.
Brendan, Monday morning we'll have Coach Ellis Johnson on breaking down the games. Lot to cover. What a fun show. And look, tap on these QR codes, man. They keep the lights on. And subscribe to Sidelines. We appreciate everybody watching. Thank you. Tell your friends.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal and the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.